and try out new things. Yeah, experiment. If you fail, you fail,
Yeah.
and if not, then you'll have something great at your hand.
This episode of Pepper Spotlight is like a nostalgia trip for anybody who's like a 90s kid. I used to watch Rob on this show called Mad, which used to air on Pogo. And I remember I used to try out all the tips and the suggestions that he used to give as to how you can do it yourself and create some brilliant artworks and some creative products at home. I have tried that in my childhood. And speaking to him today on this episode was really, really exciting as well as very thrilling to understand how he moved from television now to the internet when he's creating content on Instagram, YouTube, across different platforms. In this episode, we're going to understand Rob's entire creative process and also some behind the scenes of how it was when he was shooting that show on Pogo. Welcome to this episode of Pepper Spotlight. And before we move into the conversation with him, just want to let you all know that we're doing a massive, massive content summit on 23rd October. I know it's still far, but it's only an invite basis event to attend. So if you want to learn from the best folks out there in the content ecosystem, just head to the description of this episode and you will find a link where you can request an invite. And we'll make sure that you'll be there at the event. Let's listen to this conversation with Rob, which was pre-recorded over a Zoom call. Thank you so much, Rob, for doing this conversation with us. I think when I saw you on this Zoom call, I was like, wow, so happy. All my nostalgic childhood memories have like just come in, and I used to try some, all those small things that and this little experiments I used to do with my colors when you used to come on Mad. It's really, really great to see you here, and thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you, man. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. And I always say this, it's always nice to hear people talk about Mad, people talk about how they were inspired by the show or how much they enjoyed watching it. Because for me, I'm just an artist. So when I started the show, for me, it was like a big opportunity, a big platform, where I could showcase what I do. And everyone was very accepting and encouraging. So I feel very happy that everyone has such fond memories of the show.
How did that opportunity came your way? I want to know this. I know you have had background in degree in art and you were at an IDM, but this is very unique, let's say, as a pathway. If somebody from NID has come onto a show, like what was their journey? Can you tell us about that?
Well, there was no plan. I mean, I've shared this story a zillion times, but there was no plan or intention to get into this space and make a television show. Because I mean, you don't sit back and go, "Hey, one day I want to make my own television show where I teach art to people or try and change the mindsets of people by giving them exposure to different techniques and different, the world of art." So there was no such plan. I had just finished my animation filmmaking from NID and I'd moved to Bombay. I was working for an animation studio, and we were designing a lot of content, animated content for different channels, including kids channels. And I think through that connection, through some friends, I got to know that Pogo was looking for people uh, to create content for an art show. And that time, I had just finished working on an animation package for a competitive kids channel. So I thought maybe, like this industry is such that your work floats around and maybe somebody saw my work and they are interested in working with me and they like my work. So I went there with my portfolio, not knowing that they wanted someone to host the show as well. So yeah, initially I was a little reluctant, a little hesitant. I didn't want to do it. Um, Also because I had no experience in this space. I never faced the camera before. But I guess they saw some potential in me that I didn't see, and also they were very what do you say? open to experimenting. They gave me a lot of creative freedom to design the show the way I wanted. They gave me a lot of they had full faith in me. They said, okay, go and do it, do what you want to do. So yeah, that's how the opportunity came my way. And even though initially I wasn't so sure whether I will do this or not, but I thought maybe I should take it up as a challenge and try and create, because opportunities like these don't come your way so often.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did. Yeah.
And do you also recommend these to, let's say, other aspiring creators or artists that, try and grab any opportunities that come your way, or how is it?
Absolutely, especially when you are young. I was very young. I just stepped out of my design school. When you're young, you should take risks. Worst case scenario, I would have failed. I would have, a nice story to tell. But I'm glad I took, that risk. And now, like, everyone, has a story to tell me. Now everyone has a beautiful memory of the show. So yeah, it's important to take risks and try out new things. Yeah, experiment. If you fail, you fail, and if not, then you'll have something great at your hand.
How different it is hosting, let's say, on television and creating content for television, and now for social media, for YouTube, and for, let's say, Instagram, all these platforms. How different is the process for you, and in terms of the creativity as well? How different are these?
They are completely different spaces. They are poles apart. Because television is very, very structured. And digital is very flexible. Like television, we used to plan a season like maybe a couple of months in advance, because we had to take permissions. There would be a budget sanction, a production team. You have to work with a big team. Everything is so like large scale, like larger than life. I used to work with a team of around 80, 90 people, making the show. It was like a 4-camera setup, so yeah, so you have to be structured. You have to plan things, because it's not like, hey, I don't feel like shooting today, so let's switch off the camera and we'll post something tomorrow. There, if you cancel a shoot, there are 80, 90 people who are working with you. You'll cancel everyone's day because everyone is doing a job there. You have to follow a timetable. So everything is very, very structured. If you want to change something, then you have to get permissions from the channel. You'll have to discuss with the team, because they have planned everything according to that. You can't just change the format. Digital is very flexible. You can really experiment. If a video is working, great. If it's not working, you can change the style of shooting. You can see what is trending, what is topical. You can make something on that. A television show was not like that. We used to shoot all the episodes, keep a bank ready, and they would roll out, every Sunday. So there was no scope of, let's be spontaneous and just shoot something today and put out. Having said that, we used to do specials, which was like, something is coming up. We should try and quickly shoot an episode and put it out there. But yeah, there was no flexibility like that. The advantage of digital platforms is they give you a lot of flexibility to change your format, change your structure, change your, when you upload, all of that. The engagement that you can have with your audience is also great, that you can connect with so many people. You see instant sort of results or feedback you get from your audience. They'll start messaging you, commenting, sending you DMs on your videos and posts. So all that is there. Like for TV, you has to wait for almost a month or two to get like cartons full of letters, which was like feedback from people or appreciation for what we had done in a season. Or we would wait for the TRP to know whether an episode did well or not. So they are completely different. Also, I guess digital is a lot more personal, especially because everyone consumes content on a small screen, like your tablet or your phone. So it's like in your personal space, you're holding it and you're talking to the creator or you're watching them. So it seems like a very intimate sort of experience, as opposed to television, because television is like placed in your bedroom or living room and you watch with your whole family. But here on digital, your audience can actually enter the creator's living room and bedroom. as opposed to the show coming to the creators, the audience living room. So the whole experience and the way we design content for both mediums is very different. Like for digital, I had to unlearn everything to learn and understand how this works. Like change the language, change how I shoot content, how I talk to my audience, everything. So yeah, it's been a tricky transition for me, but I'm enjoying. I'm open to learning new things, so really enjoying this space.
And I think with digital you can experiment a lot, as how you were saying. I saw one of your reels on the Bachpan Ka Pyar music, and I was like, oh wow, I never thought like somebody can use this music and this trend into a very artsy way. So I think that's also great with all the digital platforms, and also the fact that people can give you instant like responses about what they like, and they can connect with you instantly rather than waiting for letters or like the chithi also. But tell me one thing, because a lot of the initial content, I'm not saying what you create now on let's say digital, because I also thoroughly enjoy the content pieces and everything that you create. But when you're specifically creating content or a show for kids, how difficult it is to, the ideation process, the moderation for okay, what you're going to speak, what you're going to show, and all of those things. And you also have to do that moderation in your head while you're creating for digital content, or no, it's just for TV?
Yeah, like I said, for digital, it's a lot more flexible. You can say what you want to say. TV, there were a lot of guidelines. There were a lot of restrictions, especially for a kids channel. But my content anyways was pretty clean. It was my brief was to make content for kids, to educate them and entertain them. So a mix of that brief was, the content coming out was very clean. I didn't have to keep too many things in mind. But yes, designing content for kids can be challenging because kids are the most challenging audience to please. But they're also the most honest audience to please. If they like something, they'll like something. If they don't like, they'll let you know. So it's not like, अरे इसने अभी 10 घंटे लगा के ये वीडियो बनाया है, तो we should say हाँ अच्छा लग रहा है. If they say it's not looking nice, they'll tell you on your face, and that is great because that kind of feedback you want, especially in today's time. When we are putting out content every day, if something is not working, I would like to hear that, like in the very next instance, like if somebody tells me this video is not looking great, or the way you shot it is not nice, the concept doesn't work, great, I'll fix it, I'll improve it, and then I'll present another concept or another video out. So working with kids is great because they give you that kind of clarity. But yes, working with kids, you have to make the content very engaging because their attention span is very little. So with that short attention span, they get easily distracted. So in the show, if you remember, the show was designed in a way where I had a lot of surprises. Even if I was painting something, it wasn't the usual technique. I would pick up playing cards and paint. I would pick up a toothbrush and paint. If I was using materials, I would pick up boxes to bottles to, unusual stuff, which excites a kid sitting at home. The idea was to spark their imagination. And it wasn't like, oh, what he's doing is something that my art teacher does, or my dad can do, or my mom can do. It was something different. And when you present something like that, you already like bring them in, And the other thing is just the language. I never tried to be a teacher or an adult. It wasn't like, hey, you have to do it this way. It was very flexible. It was very casual. It was like, I am having fun doing this. So if you will try it, maybe you will enjoy it too. So that connect that I had with them was like a friend or a big brother kind of a. So that was another thing that I always kept in mind when I was making content for kids. And I guess all that worked because the show did well.
Yeah. Tell me right now, how big is your team? How are you managing the whole, content creation process, editing of it, uploading whatever content strategy that you create? How big is the team, and how is the whole dynamics of it?
So even earlier, my core team was very small. I had very few people who were like my soundboard, or like I would sit with them and brainstorm on ideas, because I mostly come up with my own concepts and stuff, because that's what worked for me initially. Because like I said, that I was so new in the space of making television content, that I didn't want to go by a script or an idea that someone else is giving. I was like, I can only do it if I know what I'm doing, So I'll use my experiences and my knowledge. So even now, my team, in fact, just before the lockdown, my team was small, but it consisted of about 5, 6 people, including my manager, somebody who was shooting my content, like a camera person, somebody who was directing or supervising what I'm doing. Because once I'm in front, then I can't direct. So I want someone to follow the storyboard or follow the script that I've written, things like that. But since lockdown, because here I have a home studio, so I don't allow too many people here. Initially, it was just me managing everything. I was shooting on my own. I was setting up lights, sitting down, storyboarding. I just got an editor to edit externally. Now I have just 2 people. So team is very, very small. But whenever I get like bigger sort of projects where I require more people to work, then I get more people on board. But like shooting for like reels or, it's just like 15-second content. It's just stop motion animation that I can do on my own. So with another person who can man the camera while I'm working, and whenever like I take shots, I shoot mostly myself, and then I get another person to take shots when I'm working. With that team, I manage pretty well.
Got it. The reason why I asked you that is because this is like a classic problem for a lot of artists and creators, especially who are like, let's say, in the visual arts domain, or let's say performing artists as well, because they feel that a lot of their time goes into the creation of art, and they don't have enough time to create content about that art. Um, how do you think some artists who are listening to this conversation can really manage that well, not just in terms of time, but also, let's say, in terms of processes, or let's say some tools, like if somebody is painting or writing a song, should they always have like a camera on record? Or how can some artists, like, just tackle this problem that they don't have enough time to create content about their art?
Well, it depends on what they are making. Like for the television show, I used to make these big art installations, and those used to take like a lot of time. And I'm not doing that now, but I do that once in a while when I have a little more time at hand. But doing smaller stuff doesn't take that long. Like if you are good at what you do and you're not investing, the problem with most of the artists is that they spend a lot of time trying to perfect something they are making. And I think that, in today's times, you don't have to spend too much time doing that. Not that you put out something that you're not happy or satisfied with, but sometimes we tend to waste time on something, and that is not really required. I used to do that too earlier, where I would look at it and go, no, maybe I'll give it another day. Because mostly what happens is when you look at an art piece and you're working on it, you don't feel that it's done. But once you take a little break and come back to it, you can see what is wrong, what needs to be sort of, how can you make it more complete, like that. And in that process, you end up wasting a lot of time. So I say that don't waste that time. Keep making, because once you make it, put it out, then it's gone. Then people will decide whether it's good or bad. You will get your appreciation or your feedback, and then use the rest of the time to keep making more content, because you are, anyways, the more you make, the better you get. So I'll say just keep making more content. Don't spend too much time trying to perfect your things, because when you're working other pieces, you're still perfecting your art. And just like most people, the problem is they don't start here. They don't put stuff out. Because once you get into that, then it's like a little rhythm. It's like a cycle. Things start rolling then. So you have to do that. Once you put out, then it's gone. I can start working on another project. You start planning other things. So I also plan like a little, like a sort of like a calendar or a timetable of sorts, that I should do this, that, other. Like I should put out a reel or two. I should make a YouTube video, like that. And when I follow that, it's a slightly more structured sort of process. Then it works well.
Yeah. Moving from the content conversations here, another, like a classic statement or whatever question that floats around into a lot of the artists and the communities that I'm part of is that is a degree in art really necessary to be an artist today, or you can just be a self-taught artist, learn from YouTube wherever across different platforms? What's your opinion about this?
I mean, you don't need a degree to get work. Like I have never shown my degrees to anyone, whether it was my fine art degree or my animation filmmaking degree. I've never shown my degrees to anyone. It's mostly portfolio and your work. Having said that, I feel it's very important to be part of an institute or get a degree because that's your foundation. It's very important to be part of that structured learning as well. You can learn from YouTube, but it's basically then you have to plan your own curriculum. You know what I'm saying? Like when you don't know, like, okay, I want to become an animator today, but where should I start? Then you'll go and look at some courses online. Great. Sometimes they will give you a curriculum. They will say, join this in 2 weeks, you will learn everything. But now you're learning in an isolated sort of space. When you are in an institute or when you're with like-minded people, creative people around you, it helps a lot because you're also learning from their mistakes. Not everyone will work on the same project. They might work on a different idea that you didn't think of, So to see what they are doing, what their process is like, how will they reach the final product? It's very nice to see their process as well. So it's important to be surrounded by like-minded people. It helps a lot. Again, you can discuss with them, get a feedback. Even at NID, I think a lot of learning happened when I was spending time with my seniors, more than teachers. Because again, everyone has a different problem. Everyone has a different concept and idea or a project they're working on, and they share their experiences, and that helps a lot. It helps a lot, especially things like when I was learning animation. Even though I was doing an animation course, when I worked on my stop motion animation film and I had to make sets, or when I had to do the lighting for the thing, I had to go to the film department and get guys to come and help me out. When I was doing costumes, I spent time with the apparel designers, to figure out how to make tiny costumes and how to stitch like these tiny outfits. When I was working, building the sets, I worked with the furniture designer, or like I worked in the wood workshop to figure out how to work with those tools. So all of that helps if you're part of, like an institute. So I think getting a degree or getting a foundation in that is a better route to take.
Yeah. Like on a different note, creating stop motions is so much of work. It requires a lot of patience. Once we were trying to do it here at Pepper in the office, and we were like, my God, this is very time consuming. And we had to like scrap that idea because it was taking a lot of time. Something else again, now this is more coming from the groups that I'm part of, and being around a lot of artists and creators, and like a daily challenge that sometimes they feel is that when you're passionate about something and that becomes your full-time thing, how do you really separate that as joy and as work, and how do you make that differentiation when your whole life is also revolving around it, especially for, let's say, full-time creators? Everywhere they go, they're thinking about, oh, maybe we should make a video about this, or maybe we should tweet about this, or whatever, in any other things. So um, how do you manage, or separate, let's say, what is like personal art creation or personal life, and what really is your work in this entire journey?
Actually, the only thing that I've done is, and in fact, a lot of times now also when I'm building my house in Goa, people are saying, oh my God, your house will be like, like one art piece itself because, you're thinking. And I was like, no, it will be like a regular home. So if you look at my house, it's very simple. It's like I've kept the spaces different. My art studio is where I do all my crazy mad stuff. That's my lab. But my home is different. And same is with my set of friends. There are some friends who are not from this background, not from the media background or art or design background. And there are some friends who are from like the same fraternity. So I try and keep like a balance. Like I sometimes hang with the friends who are not from this space because then I don't need to talk about art or design. And whenever I need to like brainstorm, then I spend time with them. So I guess that's what you need to do. But I feel that, like, I don't know, no matter how hard you try, you won't be able to separate the spaces, because that's the beauty of what we do. We don't go to an office and sit and say, okay, 9 to 5, and then now switch off, office work is done. Your work is happening like when you're moving around. This is your office. You have your ideas and concepts here. So this is how it works. In fact, my motto is observe and absorb. So I am always like looking out for ideas and inspiration, because it's around you. You keep your eyes and ears open, you'll get so many ideas, you get inspired by everything around you. So what I do is I just carry a little journal and keep doodling and scribbling in that. So yeah, I don't try and consciously say that, okay, I should not mix the two, but because I have separated the spaces, it automatically happens.
Got it. I have two last questions for you, and one of those questions is: do you be very analytical with the content you create while you're planning? Because you said that you also plan and put it in a calendar or a schedule. Do you use any tools to plan out what video you will create next, or anything like that?
Well, it's a mix of both. I obviously look at data, analytics on what is working, why it is working. Because for an artist, like whatever I put out, that's my baby. You can't choose, you can't be like, oh, this one is better and that one is not. Yes, it may be like process-wise, you can say this one took more time and this one didn't. But a lot of times, like even when I put out reels, I spend almost 3.5 days to make one stop motion animation reel for when reels turned a year old. Okay. And that didn't get me a lot of plays or views or attention. But I made like one simple glitch video and it got 30 million views. So you need to look at what is working also, because it's important what your audience likes when you post it. It could be the time, it could be, oh, the music I used was trending, or the idea was topical. So all that information definitely helps, but I don't base all of my content on that. I also do what I like to do, because at the end of the day, it's my channel, it's my page. I am the creator, so I should be happy and satisfied with what I'm putting out. So I like to do what I want to do. But again, I keep a balance of, even if like Bachpan Ka Pyar was a perfect example. Like I wanted to do something because I knew that that song is working and it's trending and people are enjoying it. But I didn't do the typical dance on it or make funny faces or act like a kid. I made a small puppet. And I made a reel and it worked. So if you can bring in your unique style or USP to a trending idea or music, then it works. So yeah, I'll say it's a mix. I see what I'm putting out is working or not, basis on what I've created and what the data says.
But before I move to my last question, thank you so much, Rob, for giving so much clarity. And I'm very sure a lot of creators and artists who are going to listen and watch this conversation, they will have a lot of clarity in terms of some of these, everyday challenges that even I personally face. Sometimes I'm just thinking about, oh, this is nice. While I'm, scrolling from my personal account, I'll see my family and friends, but then I'll see something very creative and I would be like, oh no, let me save this so that maybe we could also create something of this sort. So there are a lot of things that you answered and would be very, very helpful and insightful for many creators and artists. The last question that I want to ask you is, tell us about some interesting stories from your mad days. How was it like then? What was like your usual shoot day like? How do you used to plan for it, or any interesting stories about that? Because that's like my nostalgia trip right now.
Well, where do I even begin, man? There are lots of stories. Like I said, it was very new for me to be part of something like that, because I had also never experienced something like that before, being part of a crew that was so big, and especially like even not just being part of it, but sort of also managing, directing, because most of the ideas that has to come up with, nobody had seen those ideas before, or nobody knew what to expect. So I'd always like sit down and discuss with them. So my day used to be like I would reach the studio floor and sit down with the whole team and discuss ideas on what I would be doing that day. And make them understand, because it's almost like, people think that shooting an art show is easy, but it's not. It's like how you watch some of the cooking shows, no, and they're putting ingredients. Like if somebody puts salt, there is no control Z. Like you can't undo it. It's gone. If you have to take another shot, you will put more salt in it, but you have ruined the dish. So it's like that. So if I'm painting something and I put some extra water or like a color, you can't say, oh, wait, we didn't take a close-up shot. Can you do it again? You can't do it again. It's gone. So we had to sit down and plan every single thing. Like I would tell them, this is the point where I'm going to add details. So make sure like the close-up camera comes on. And that's why we had like our 4 or 5 camera setup that we used to shoot with. But even before that, like I said, we used to plan the season, say 3 months in advance. So it was mostly me sitting down and pulling out all my sketchbooks and going through the pages and figuring out, okay, when I was traveling to, say, Andamans, I went to one of the local markets there and they had made some things out of coconut. And that is a great way to, introduce kids to finding local materials around. But they can't work with coconut. So what can we work with? What can be a great way to, like show them that when you put pieces together, you can create something. And I'm like, wait, what do they have? Like, what is around? And I'll go cardboard boxes, bottles, shoe insoles, because it's craft foam. So they can pull out an old shoe insole and make stuff like that. So I would write down the ideas, pick up some materials. And then we used to have these sort of like workshops where there will be people from the channel, from the production team and my art team, my core team. And then we used to sit and make stuff. So I would show them how it's done. And then I would see what people are making. And that was great because often enough, they would ask questions that I would be like, yeah, this I need to definitely address, because I used to break down the idea to make it as simple as, so that a 6-year-old can understand. But I always kept in mind that my ideas, even though it was a kid's show, but it was not just for kids, but the child in you. So a 6-year-old can also watch and a 60-year-old can also watch and feel like, hey, I should use the technique to make something else. So what I was making was, okay, a 6-year-old can comprehend and try it, but the same technique can be applied by someone else to create something for their house, for a project, or, like that. So after those workshop sessions, when people used to make, and everyone used to get very excited because, they're like, hey, I used to do this in school. I've never tried it, but it's now fun to make. So we used to make stuff, then get onto the studio floor, shoot it. Shoot days were fun, yeah. Though after a long schedule, I used to sort of lose the sense of time, because I used to get in very early, like 8:30, you would get into the studio floor, which was like a humongous warehouse where I would be making big pictures and stuff. And you only exit that space in the night. Like I used to finish shoot by 9:30, 10, sit down with the production team to brief them on what I'm doing the next day. So by the time I come out, it's dark. So I go at 8 in the morning and come out. So there's no like afternoon or evening, everything is gone. If it's raining outside, I don't know. So after like 15 days, 20 days, I was like, hey man, I need a break. So every time I used to get a break, I would just travel and again, like put down ideas just for inspiration. So it was fun days.
Now I get to know some behind the scenes of the show. So thank you so much for answering that. And thank you so much, Rob, once again for being on the show. And I think this was very, very insightful and very nostalgic for me to, just go back to those days when, we had, I have 2 elder sisters, and they always used to take care of and, just take the control of the remote of television. And I never used to get time to, watch all these cartoon channels and other shows. And the time when I used to get it, I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to watch Mad now. So I think today I'm going to tell them and go and just fuck them that, you guys did not let me watch it. Otherwise, I would have been in some very artsy place rather than, corporate world today. But yes, thank you so much once again, Rob, for being here today. I hope you all enjoyed this conversation with Rob. And if you liked any part of this conversation, it could be just one small clip or a quote or something that you did not like, just please share with us over DM, or just mention us in your story, or tweet about it, or write a LinkedIn post about it. It really, really makes up our day and gives us that validation that any other creator might need or a freelancer might need. So go ahead, if you liked any part of this conversation, just tag us at the rate pepper underscore content, and we'll be happy to reshare it, to talk more with you about what you like and hear any suggestions you have for Pepper Spotlight. Once again, reminding you all about the 23rd October content summit that we're doing. The link to request an invite is in the description of this episode. Please go ahead, just click on it. The small form takes 1 minute of time, and we'll see you at the summit.